much. Wow, it is so incredible to be here with all of you today. Thank you for coming out and being a part of this historic moment. Several months ago, Ryan and I shared the news with my 92-year-old father about our upcoming journey. And he was astonished. He wasn't just impressed by the possibility of his son-in-law becoming the next president of the United States, but also by the prospect of his daughter, a first-generation immigrant from South Korea, becoming the First Lady. If you can just imagine, next month on May 21st, it will be the 50th anniversary of my family immigrating from South Korea to the United States. I came 4 years later in 1977 as a 6-year-old after my family had settled down in Georgia. Having served as the interpreting officer between the Korean commanding general and Lieutenant General Trudeau of the United States Army, Dad was granted a special immigrant visa after the Korean War, but not before he waited in line for 15 years as he faithfully worked for the U.S. government as an Army civilian. You know, it wasn't until a few years ago when I got an opportunity to visit the Korean War Memorial that I was so incredibly moved at the realization of the sacrifice of the United States. Up to this point, I was grateful that my parents had the courage to move to America, but the reality of the price of freedom, a price that was paid for by the very lives of this nation's sons, not only allowed my family and I the opportunity to immigrate, but that sacrifice allowed South Korea to grow and thrive into the strong democratic nation that it is today. I will be forever grateful to the United States because my life was changed forever. However, I know that my story is not unique. Today, the beauty of this nation resides in the interwoven tapestry of the many different cultures and ethnicities that now call the USA their home. Millions of people have come from all over the world, either due to hardships or simply looking for a greater opportunity to live life, to find a country where they can fulfill their dreams. Dreams of living in a nation that has freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom to learn, freedom to live in safety, and the list goes on and on. But we must not take this for granted. As fiercely as we as a country have fought for freedom in the past, our fight now is for the hearts and minds of our young people. So how will we win this battle? One way is by fighting for truth, which doesn't change regardless of popular opinions. Another way is by fighting for vision, because without a vision for our future, we cease to thrive and we merely survive. And a final way we will win this battle is by fighting for freedom. With truth, vision, and freedom, we can influence the world and bring positive change to generation after generation. It's time for us to change direction, seek to understand rather than to be understood, and to remember that we do live in the greatest nation in the world, one that truly is the land of the free and the home of the brave. Now it is my highest honor and privilege to introduce you to a man who carries a huge God-given vision of this nation in his heart. He is a pastor who practices what he preaches at home. He is a president and CEO of Generational Group, a thriving M&A firm. He is a loving and fun dad to our 5 children. He is a man of integrity and honor, a leader of leaders, and my best friend. Please welcome the next president of the
USA! Thank you very much, Binkley Brigade. I appreciate you guys back there. Thank you all for being here and for dedicating your time today to be with us on this very special moment, really for all of our lives, for our family, and for our nation. This is such an amazing time. But before I begin, I want to really acknowledge some very important people to my life here in this room. And first of all, I want to start off by thanking all of our staff and all of our volunteers that made this happen today. Let's give them a lot of love. Amazing job setting this thing up. I want to thank our host, Mike Moore, for being here today. Thank you, Mike. I want to thank Admiral Bill Moore. I really appreciate you. Your words are always inspiring to me, full of wisdom. I want to thank Nick Vujicic for being here. Yako Buins, wherever you are, Yako, my friend, thank you for your words. And of course, Pastor Chris McCrae, thank you so much. Each one of your words and passion just means so much to me, but more than anything, your friendship and your love. And thank you for being on this journey with us as we move ahead. I'm honored. Secondly, I want to thank my parents. Where's mom and dad? There they are. My parents, John and Sharon Binkley, they're incredible people. There's no way to describe in a couple minutes even about what you mean to my life, but I will just say this. Your continued faithfulness and your generosity of who you are as a person and a couple have impacted my life forever. I love you. I want to thank my children. Where are my kids? They're back there. So Benjamin, Catherine, Zoe, Gabriel, and James, you are world changers. I love you, and I want you to know this. I'm proud of you. You guys are amazing. Amen. And then, of course, to my lovely wife, Ellie. Ellie, you inspired me the day I met you. It was about 29 years ago that I sat next to you in church. And you've always inspired me. Everybody that knows you, to our children, our family, our church community, every leader I know knows there's something special about you. And when they tell me, hey, Ryan, there's something special about her, I'm like, yes, I know. That's why I'm here today. I love you. You are my dream. Today, we as Americans, we find ourselves at a crossroads. Yet another pivotal moment in our nation's history. We've always been a nation that has pursued innovation and exploration. And really, we've been driven by this one powerful belief, and this is what it is, that you can do and become anything that you want to be. It drives us as a nation. And the United States has always been this lamppost of freedom, to where every citizen in our country can see, and now every nation can see a nation whose foundation is built on liberty. It's an amazing thought. And we are here now, and we always strive to protect that which keeps that true. So we protect our freedom of speech, our freedom of assembly, our freedom of worship, and our freedom of capitalism and trade, and yes, even our freedom to peacefully protest. Those are important to us. But this light of freedom that we hold dear is about to burn out today, and it's at risk because of assaults that are constantly there by a biased press and media and a political culture that continually incites fear and division. And I believe this now more than ever in my lifetime, that it's time that we as a nation, we rid ourselves of everything that darkens that flame, and we brighten this lamp of freedom once again. Our goal has always been to pass this torch of freedom to the next generation with a brighter flame than we received it. But there's no guarantee that that's going to happen today. Most of our country really no longer believes. We're in a moment of great uncertainty and doubt. We've lost faith. I would say this, not because we lack determination or willpower. Really, we lost faith because our leaders can no longer see the path ahead to go. We as a nation, we've lost our way. We no longer share this belief that our true north is a nation that is strong, unified, and reconciled to God and to each other. But our founders gave us some guideposts, and they gave us this compass that if we ever got in this situation for us to lean on, and that was for us to do this, to trust in God. To also to rely on each other, to remember this, that we are one nation. We are the United States of America, and it seems like we forgot that. These ideals for most Americans of thinking about what it means to trust in God and trust in each other, they've been so far removed that a whole generation has come up, and now it's almost like a distant dream for most of America. We find ourselves in a culture today that is in a situation where God is rarely even acknowledged and where trust is seemingly evaporated all at once. And today I'm calling our country. I'm calling you and I and all of our families to gather together and to remember the compass that guided us and got us here to begin with. Remember the guidepost of unity and transparency and wisdom, and let's find our way back to freedom again. Whenever we're on this path and we get lost like this, it can happen to any of us. It reminded me of a story that happened to me a few years ago when my oldest son, Benjamin, graduated high school. Right before then, he was awarded the rank of Eagle Scout. And I want you to know, Ben, I was so proud. After a decade of hard work and service and a mom getting on him all the time to finish those merit badges, he completed that, and it was a great honor, and I was very, very proud of you and still am. But I was rewarded. He got an Eagle Scout rank. I got rewarded with a 7-day hiking trip with 15 other dads and sons in the wilderness. And it was a great trip, but it was a hard trip. If you can imagine 15 highly trained Eagle Scouts and 15 highly, let's call it out of shape dads on a trip with a 50-pound backpack going 8 to 10 miles a day in the wilderness of Mount Philmont. It was tough. We had no cell phones, no GPS. We trusted scouts with compasses and maps. And the worst part was we had these little bitty tents, and the men had to share them, and the boys shared. But I'll just say this. We got to know each other really, really well on that trip. What a joy that was. But at the end of it, at the second to last day there, we got lost. We had missed a guidepost, and we didn't recognize where we were until about 4 hours into this journey. And then we recognized that we were in trouble. In fact, we had a choice to make. Either we were going to go back to that lamppost that we missed, that guidepost, and find our way back to security. But if we did, we would lose a whole day of travel. Or we could trust the compass and trust the map to get us there and go on track and finish on time. I'm thankful that we made that right decision. Scouts trusted their compass and they got us home safely. But from that experience, I learned a couple things. First of all, I learned this, that a good Eagle Scout with a compass that works is really more valuable than 15 dads that don't know where they're going. And I also learned that it's so important that if you're trying to find your destination with a map, it's first more important to know where you are on the map. And this is the problem with our political leaders today. They don't know where we're on the map right now. They can't even find ourselves. We don't know where we are. And not only that, they don't have a true north that we can all agree to, or that really is this, trusting in God for our future. We find ourselves, we're in a crisis today, and we've lost our way, and we've lost the sense of who we are culturally and financially and politically, and now it's had this huge impact on our life internationally. I'm here with some friends today. About 20 years ago, we had a chance to travel to China. And it was an amazing trip. We're there with about 100 business leaders and graduate students from SMU and the MBA program. And it was an amazing trip. We went to Beijing, Shanghai, and Hong Kong, and a few other places. And the welcome map that they gave us was amazing. They were inviting, innovation. They were inviting investment and growth. And seeing their nation grow was remarkable. And they respected us as really potential investors and partners because they respected the strength of our country. And how things have changed in just 20 years. Recently, you may have noticed that the president of China will not even take a phone call from the president of the United States of America today. They no longer respect our leaders the way they should. And even though that we're one of the largest trade partners they have, they continue to rebuff us at every chance. Basically, right now, China is ghosting America. And if we don't do something about it, we'll fall further into insignificance. China's doing a good job, I would say, in some ways of creating trade partners throughout much of Africa and Europe today, and we're being left behind because our dollar's weaker than it's been in decades. We're struggling financially. They're making relationships, they're loaning money, and we ourselves owe China almost $1 trillion. Lord, help me and tell me why. This should never happen. But before we can find our way internationally, I know this, we have to fix what's broken here domestically. We've got a lot of problems here at home, and we've got to have wisdom in order to fix it. Our banks are actually struggling. Inflation is soaring, and jobs are getting scarcer by the day, and our problems don't end there. When our borders are really porous regions and they're filled with violence and fentanyl and human trafficking, more so than being a gateway of an opportunity, you know that we've lost our way. When our classrooms are filled more with propaganda and politics and sex education, I'll call it misinformation, than being really teaching math and science and engineering, we've lost our way. And we see this happening so much in urban areas when they are filled with homelessness now and crime and drugs, and there's so much pain there. Instead of those being places where dreams and jobs are being created, we've lost our way and we have to fix it. Yeah. We can't continue on this path. But really, as I think about this, these are all symptoms of really the same problem. It's really a problem, and I would say this, it's a crisis of faith. Do we still really believe in the wonder that is America? Do we really believe that God is interested and cares about the affairs of man today? I believe he does. And do we really believe in each other anymore? There's such this absence of trust, and we're not listening or caring for one another. And the next generation is seeing this. And what's happening is that we've just lost our faith. And when people quit believing in God and our Creator who gave us our rights, and then they quit losing the foundation of family, what happens is we lose our very structure in our society. Our children now have grown up, a whole generation has followed us as we've seen now our political leaders being divisive. And now that bedrock of family has been lost, and our children are watching this happen. And now many parents are just locked out of their children's lives in so many ways, and it should never happen. When people lose their faith in each other, what happens is they stop listening. They stop caring. They cease cooperating. And soon, even the very bonds that can keep us together are broken. And when polled, you may have read this recently, a Gallup poll was polled across all America, and they asked this question: what one word would you use to describe the culture of America today? Does anybody know what that word was? Divided. That's right. It was divided. Not united. Divided is the way that most of America describes our country today. And they see it all around us. Political news and adversaries are angry, they're entrenched, they're vindictive, and we're now in a culture war. A war with no victors, only victims. There's no chance of a peace talk because we're too busy canceling each other on the right and the left. And the division now is going well beyond politics. There's always been difficult racial divides and spiritual divides and economic divides, but now they seem to be widening more than ever. And that's why I'm calling our nation. I'm calling on you. I'm asking our country to hear this cry, I believe from the heart of God, that it's time for us to unify again. We have The greatest challenges we face, it's not China, it's not Iran, it's not Russia. The greatest challenge we face is ourselves in our own nation. And if we don't rally together and understand this, we're going to lose the answers to the biggest problems that are ahead of us, and we will not win. Our leaders have poorly communicated, I think, to the most struggling areas of society, what it takes to end the poverty crisis in our country. The message of socialism promises stability and security, but actually delivers a fractured, bloated government with no real way of success for individuals. That said, we cannot expect those that are outside of this, I would call it this party of freedom, to receive a message of freedom if we are not willing to help them understand and be the bridgeway to help them see it more clearly. So immigrants today and people in immigrant communities and those in urban areas and some college students, they're really struggling to see our message because they haven't seen it with love yet. And we need to show them in a clear way. Before Ellie and I started our church, we worked with young adults in the college age ministry for about 17 years. And I've got 3 college-age students, and they have friends, and I talk with them. And this is what I know about young people today. College students will not follow a parent if they have not been authentic with them. They won't go to church with them when they don't have to. If a parent never had a chance to look them in the eye and say, you know what, I could have handled that differently. I should have done that different. If they don't see authenticity, they're not going to follow it. They won't follow it in a professor, and they won't follow it in a politician either. And they also won't follow it if we don't ever show that we care about those that are most hurting in society. But I do know this about young people. They'll follow a movement if it's something they believe in. College students in this last presidential election voted 4-1 for the Democratic Party. I believe it's time for our party to reach in and see that we've got wisdom and we've got truth, but we have to show it with transparency and love. We love the young generation. We spent many years of our life just working in that community. And I will say this, every time I have a chance to speak to a college student, somebody that's young today, every opportunity I have, I'm just saying this one thing. Would you abandon politics as you know it? Would you just leave it alone? It's been so divisive. You can see it all the more clear, but just let it go. But would you do this one thing? Would you follow me in a movement to love your neighbor? I believe this, God never called us to hire the government to take care of the neighborhood. He posed this question to us and said, will you love your neighbor? When my grandfather, Doc Binkley, passed away about 15 years ago, he was one that decided to give back to his generation. And then this is what I'm calling young people to do. I'm thinking, if you want to change the world, if you want to change America, would you just do this one thing and invest your life in one other person, a child today? What would happen if we started a young adult volunteer movement where college campuses were invading every urban school with love and mentoring and training first graders, fifth graders, seventh graders, teaching them how to read, write, and get their levels where they should be and beyond? We could change the world if we did that. My granddad, when he was in the Navy, he was a pilot. He was in intelligence, and he suffered a wreck at sea at one time, and it caused a serious eye injury that really plagued him for most of his adult life. But in his latter years, his last 10 years of life, from 75 to 84, he gave his life to that next generation. It was really interesting to see, because at his funeral, it was kind of amazing. I went to this small town in North Texas at this church, and there was not one parking lot space available. It was just busy. It was packed. And I started thinking about his life and why that was true. And the reason is that he gave his life for that next generation. He was the biggest fan at all their sports. He went to every football game, every basketball game, every girls' softball game, every girls' volleyball game. And he gave his life for that next generation. Not only that, he would hit my dad up and me up for $500 or $1,000. He'd hit you up if he knew you were given. If he even knew you were. And what he was doing is raising money for scholarships for these kids. And you know what happened? They remembered. 10 years later, they went to his funeral and they remembered. And I would see posters hanging all over his house about the impact that he made in his life. And I say this, you know what he did? He took ownership of his city. That's what he did. And this is what I'm asking America to do. And I'm asking you today, will you do that? Will you own your city? Will you own the communities that surround you? Because if we do that, we can change the world. I believe this. It's time for us to be able to take our lives to another level and serve in our communities, in our neighborhoods, and love our neighbors. This is the calling of God for our country and for our life. And so as we begin to go on this journey, I want to ask you if you would join in this movement as well to change the world. If we'll just change one life, it'll make all the difference. If you want to bring change in America, this is our challenge. Change one person that's hurting. Throughout our country, we can see this. Whenever there's a mentor, a volunteer, somebody that can be in somebody's life to show them the way, then we can change the world. This is the way to freedom. You know, as I think about the challenges we have in our country and the things that we need to move forward, we have to be able to see that God has a plan for us. And that God has a plan that's bright, it's a plan that's true, but we have to remember that it's going to take us to do it. It's going to take leaders to do it. If we don't get involved, we'll be on a downward cycle and we'll continue to see income disparity throughout the world in a hopeless situation. If we attempt to just throw money at our problems, they only cause things to be worse. Right now, in our efforts to try and solve problems by doing that, by throwing money at something with no real plan, has caused our country to be $31 trillion in debt. Right now, 8% of our budget goes out to pay interest on that debt every single year. And what's happened is we have to roll the printing presses just to pay that bill. It's unsustainable. If we don't change something in the next few years, it could be 10 or 15% of our budget. We could be spending as much in interest payments as we do on our national defense, and we can no longer do that. Our politicians today reminds me of a college student who just wanted to keep borrowing more money. He came to his dad in the summertime and he said, "Dad, I want to purchase some things. I'm thinking about getting another credit card." His dad, dubious of his son's spending habits, said, "Well, hold on, son. First of all, tell me about your debt here. What's your credit score? Do you know what it is?" And he said, "Dad, I really don't know what my credit score is, but it must be pretty good." He said, "Really, why, son?" He said, "Well, the credit card calls me and leaves me a message every day. And they tell me my debt's outstanding." I think I've got to go tell Washington that that's not an outstanding thing to have anymore. Furthermore, I'll say this: if our politicians today keep spending your money and my money like reckless teenagers or college students with too many credit cards, we're going to take them away from them. And if that's not enough right now, our healthcare system is broken. It's got monopolies inside of it that really don't allow price transparency. In fact, our providers have convinced us that we're just not smart enough to understand what the true problems with healthcare are. In fact, we've been trained to walk into a hospital day or a doctor's office and not even ask what it costs anymore. It's the only thing we purchase in America that we do this with, and it's time that we stop it. It's an easy fix. What we have to do is bring price visibility, competition to the table, and we can manage this business again. If we do not understand the problem that is, we just have to look at the price inflation of healthcare because it's 40% higher than regular inflation for the last 20 years. It's unsustainable at its current rate. And then we have to begin to do this. Otherwise, we're going to have a generation that's going to be lost. And so as I'm sharing this story today where our country is, where it's broken economically and it's fractured from a heart perspective, and we're seeing what's happening, it's going to take challenges for us to do, but it's going to take faith for us to do it. And it's going to take courage. Can you see that? Can you see that it's going to take all of us? I'm entering this journey not just to fight a battle of wokeism. I'm not doing this just to pull the country over a little bit more to the right. I'm not looking for another job. I'm not looking for name recognition. But I am carrying a message in my heart from God that we better wake up and understand the true problems that we face. You know, every great generation that's gone before us that was known as being great, whether it's our founding fathers or those that fought for the North in the Civil War, or those that fought in the great world wars, and those that came out of the Great Depression, they were known for being great, I think, for one thing, for what they gave and what they sacrificed for the next generation. Have you ever thought about that? What about us? What's our sacrifice? I'm 55 years old, so those within 10 years of me on both sides, what's the great sacrifice that we're making for the next generation? I really feel this in my heart that if we do not make some big changes soon, we will be known as the generation that prospered the most but sacrificed the least. And if we're not careful, we'll be setting up our children and our grandchildren with the weakest economic foundation and the most debt in an unsustainable fashion since the Great Depression. We must act now. We've been trading freedom for security for too long, and we're losing faith in that. And we have to recognize that we've got to be able to find our faith again. It gives us a false sense of security to think that we can buy peace and safety just by giving up liberty. In fact, it was Benjamin Franklin that warned us about that. He said, those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little bit of safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. So why do we keep going through this spiral? It seems like we keep doing the same things over and over again. And I think it's because faith is hard. I mean, to actually believe that we can make a true difference in our country is a difficult thing. I had one of my friends for many years approach me the other day. He's like, "Ryan, I just think you're an idealist. Do you really believe that our country can make that kind of difference?" And I'm here to tell you that I believe that we can make that difference. is uncertainty. It's trust without warranty. It's risk without guarantee. But here's the other amazing thing about faith. It's contagious. It's contagious. It's transformative. When I'm around somebody with faith, I just want to be around them more because they can see something. And when I start seeing it, I know this. We can change minds, we can change hearts, and we can change a country if we'll let it. As Americans, we can see this. When we have faith together and we actually put action with it, there's absolutely nothing we can't accomplish. We've proven that time and time again that we can achieve anything. And our ability to do this and prove that our country can make it through its darkest times is found all the time throughout our nation's history. And I've witnessed it in my own life as well. When Ellie and I first got married, I had spent about 9 years after my undergraduate program at University of Texas in corporate America. And then I met the love of my life in Atlanta, Georgia. And at that time, we both felt a calling to full-time ministry. It was a career shift for me. But I knew it was the Lord. And we both had the opportunity to come on staff at our church in Atlanta. And we were doing inner city ministry. We had a Saturday morning program for kids that was amazing. We did missions. We had a young adult discipleship school that was like 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. I'll just say this. We were having the time of our lives. And we knew what we were doing, we were called to do. We're living the dream of our life. And then tragedy hit our home. In 2001, on Martin Luther King Day, my brother, Hal Binkley, at age 35, was killed by a drunk driver. And so every year when that day rolls around, it has two meanings for me. And I believe this. Anybody that's faced a tragedy in your life recognizes that you can come through it if you stick together with God and you stick together with your family. We know that's true. We decided to go and just do that. And we moved back to Dallas to be with my family. It was a broken time. My brother had been married for just 2 years. I think his wife Janice is here. It was a difficult time. Business was struggling in 2001, if you remember that, just after 9/11. It was tough. But we just decided to step into something new and forge that path together. I went back and got my MBA at SMU. We decided to start new businesses. My dad spun off the other company he had, and we started several together. And God's just done this. He's healed us, and he brought us through a dream. And now today we've got a group of companies that do mergers and acquisitions, investment banking, wealth management, strategic consulting. We have a cloud engineering firm, and I don't know much about technology. It's amazing. We employ now about just under 400 employees across 16 offices. And I'll just say this. If you're ever going through a personal trial, or if you're ever going through a financial trial, just hold on to God and hold on to your family. He'll see you through. This is the time for us. It doesn't matter when we fought recession from 2008. There's difficult moments that we've had, and there's difficult things that you've all walked through. But if we'll just not give up and keep going, God will bring us to the next place in our lives. When we started a church, I recognized this, that God didn't make us let go of that dream. He just put it on pause for a little bit. And about 10 years ago, Ellie and I had a dream to start a church. And for the last 10 years, we've been able to do both, business and ministry. And we started Create Church right here in Richardson, Texas. And now, and now it's a thriving community. And what we believe and we teach is that God has got a creative purpose for all of our lives, and it's a unique plan. And I believe this, that each of us have a divine plan for God. And I also believe that God has a divine plan for our country. This is what he has. And he's given us a heart for our country now. And now he's put a dream inside of my life. And about 8 years ago, he began speaking to me about the United States of America. And that we need to get this message of freedom to every single demographic and people group across our nation. And that our message must extend beyond the tents that we're in right now. Because those that are struggling in inner cities and immigrant communities right now, they're hearing a message of socialism. And I want to be able to say this, quite frankly, the message of socialism is actually quite compelling if you don't know where next week is coming from. If you don't know where you're going to eat or how you're going to eat, or you don't understand the provisions and the battles to face for shelter, or where you're going to get health care, it's a message that we have to consider. But I'm saying this message is failing, and it will always fail because it promises to secure, but it'll actually end up in a bloated government with inflation that's out of control. And that's the battle we face today. Our vision for our country is to lead into these segments with actually love and transparency and truth, and show every segment of our population that what we can do with freedom is we can change people's lives. You can actually live out the dream you have for a life. We believe in laws that bring healing from injustice. We believe in creating laws also that bring favor because they're righteous. And I see an America that is prosperous once again, that's unified and blessed in every major city and town from coast to coast. I believe we're going to be honored across the globe because we're going to share the secrets of our success with grace, strength, and diplomacy. This is what we're called to do in this nation. And I believe it. I believe we can do this with the Constitution as our map and our compass of liberty as our guide and God as our true north, and trusting each other. We can make a way and we can find this path to journey available to everybody. And this is what I'm calling the way to freedom. The way to freedom is an education platform, really, where students have choices, where parents are involved, where volunteers are mentors for the young people, and teachers are equipped for their kids to succeed. It's a healthcare program where there's true price transparency and true competition to keep prices down, and we have services that are available and visible to everyone. It's a border where there's finally a comprehensive immigration plan that does this one thing: stops the crimes at our border today. It must be secured. We have to stop human trafficking. We have to stop the role of fentanyl into our country. Right now, as Yaku mentioned, there's up to 200 to 300 young people a day dying from fentanyl. And right now, our border is a politics game, and we can't let it happen anymore. We have to save the youth of America. The way to freedom is a nation with national security, with messages that we will protect freedom around the globe, that we'll stand in the face of tyranny, but we'll be quick to aid our allies, but we'll also constantly extend a hand of diplomacy at every turn. I, along with millions of Americans, am thankful for our country and that we've stood by freedom. Anytime we get involved in a mission that's difficult with our military, we have to have an exit strategy. We have to weigh out. We always have to be a diplomatic. But I am very thankful that we have stood for freedom. I'm very glad that 70 years ago we had patriots standing for South Korea. If we didn't, my wife Ellie wouldn't be here today. My son Benjamin wouldn't be here today. My daughter Catherine wouldn't be here today. My daughter Zoe wouldn't be here today. My son Gabriel wouldn't be here today. And my son James, who we adopted from South Korea, would not be here today. And if they're not here today, I'm not here today. So freedom matters. Freedom matters. It takes strength. It takes purity of heart. And it takes God to bring breakthrough across this world. And this is what God wants to do. He wants us to stand for freedom brighter than we ever have before. He wants to bring peace and security across the globe. And he wants to bring some change. In our urban communities today, he wants to bring freedom to a young generation. He wants to see them committed and motivated, empowered for service. I see a young people today that's eager to serve in our military again. I see a day when our culture of life here is communicated very clear. I'm proudly pro-life, but I also believe here that we need to be at service and at the helm to help every woman when she's in a time of crisis, if she is in one. I had a chance to visit with leaders here on this stage, and it's remarkable how many women would choose life if they had some resource that could help them make that decision. And it's not just about, amen, it's not just about, though, protecting in the sanctity of life inside the mother's womb. It's also about adopting the 200,000 kids that are waiting to be adopted right now in America. We want to start a culture of adoption that would just change America. I really believe this, that if we honor that and honor God in that he'll bless our nation once again. The way to freedom is a budget financially. It's not real complicated. Somebody asked me one time, Ryan, what would you do about our very difficult situation financially? I said, well, I'll do what our business does and what your family does and likely every great organization does. We'd actually have a budget. We'd balance the budget. And I say this, we'll keep the budget. How about that? Truly innovative. Truly innovative. We haven't done it in 30 years, but we can do it. And I know that. And then above all, we need to be unified. Our founders gave us this message of e pluribus unum, which means out of many one. And we as a nation started with 13 colonies that were different, but they recognized they had to be one to survive. And that's where we are today. We have to be one again as a nation. It's time. And I'm asking you to stand with us and to believe. Because once we have unity, we have to recapture it and never let it go. And this is the moment we're in today. We have to be unified. We have to be in this place, because if we're in a time of uncertainty, what it's going to take is faith in God and faith in each other to get us through. And it's not time to back down. It's a time for us to believe. I believe that the United States of America will continue to be the strongest economic power throughout the globe. I believe that America will be the most passionate and energetic messenger of freedom and charity across the globe. I believe that we will restore fiscal sanity and pay down our debt and give our children the future that they deserve. I believe that we will transform healthcare to be a fair system where healthcare is putting patients over profits. I believe we'll revolutionize education. They'll bring a true revival to urban America. And I believe that we'll shine this light of freedom at our border with peace, safety, security, and care. And I also believe that we'll unite our country by listening and respecting to one another. I believe that we'll be a people who are once again proud of their flag and their country. And I believe this message of freedom must touch every hall of Congress and every office in Pennsylvania Avenue. It must touch every campus. This message of freedom must hit every college and university. And I believe this mighty stream of freedom must go into every town and every suburb, reach every great city and every urban community. And I believe this: when every American from every race, every age, and every religion sees that great torch of liberty held high and that great bell of liberty ring clear, then and only then will we be the nation that God has called us to be. This is our moment. This is it. This is it. If we align ourselves with true north and trust in God and each other again, we will find our way to freedom. And I believe it's time, and I believe we will. I know where I stand in this journey, and I believe I know where each of you stand as well. And I want to thank you for standing with me today. I am Ryan Binkley. I believe in God. I believe in America. I believe in liberty. And I believe in you. And I'm asking you today to believe in me. I'm running for the presidency of the United States of America.